There is a voice within you that never errs, a silent yet eternal current that has always been present. It is not the echo of reason, nor the mirage of emotion, but the sacred intuition, the undying lamp that illuminates every crossroad of life. If you learn to listen, you will discover that you no longer walk in darkness, no longer stumble in doubt, but move forward with certainty, peace, and strength. This journey will open before you 16 gates, leading from the recognition of the true voice to the discernment amid distractions, to the art of making intuition your compass for finances, health, family, and even collective decisions. This is not some distant tale, but a practical key for living under the constant guidance of the divine introduction to sacred intuition. Deep within the human soul lies a power that never errs, a silent yet steadfast calling, a light that remains even when life is filled with chaos. This is sacred intuition, the inner voice that whispers of truths beyond reason, that guides through the darkness and leads to order, peace, and wisdom. No matter how turbulent the world becomes, no matter how conflicts and confusion seem to cover everything, this light never abandons us. It waits patiently for the moment we pause to listen. Sacred intuition is not a fleeting emotion, nor the echo of desires or fears. It is the breath of Christ within the soul, the hidden stream that flows through the barren desert of existence, and whoever seeks it will be refreshed. A person may achieve many outer successes, yet if cut off from this voice, they will still feel empty and disoriented. Conversely, one may be poor in material possessions, but if they live in harmony with sacred intuition, they walk through life with a safety no power can destroy. Sacred intuition does not knock with logic, nor does it argue with the mind. It comes as a gentle suggestion, as a breath, so light yet powerful enough to still the restless mind. Whoever yields to it feels a release, as if an invisible burden has been lifted, but whoever ignores it will see their life fall slowly into disorder until, in humility, they return to the forgotten light. Thus, the greatest secret of life is not found in accumulating knowledge or calculating endless plans, but in learning how to be silent and hear that voice. Scripture affirms that the kingdom of God is within you, not in temples of stone, not in doctrines that shift with the times, but in the heart itself. From this inner sanctuary, Christ speaks, not with human language, not through rituals or complex philosophies, but by sending forth a current of wisdom, ceaseless and unfailing. It is the stream of peace, clarity, and gentleness, never coercing but always inviting. Recall the moments when you stood at a crossroads. On one side was the voice of reason, filled with calculation and fear of loss. On the other was the gentle yet unwavering impulse from within. If you have ever ignored that call, you have tasted confusion. But when you trusted it and followed, though the path was difficult, the result opened to a better door. That voice is never loud, never forceful, yet once obeyed, you feel peace seeping into every fiber of your being, a confirmation from above that you are on the right path. In a world of increasing noise, people forget that wisdom is born in silence. They chase news, predictions, comparisons, judgments, and then wonder why they cannot hear God. Yet the sacred voice has never ceased. It is only the mind that has turned away, absorbed in illusions. To find sacred intuition, you need not go far, nor perform elaborate rituals. You need only cleanse the mind as you would polish a dusty mirror. When the dust is gone, the true image appears. When fear, criticism, and ambition are released, the inner voice rises. Those who live by sacred intuition are no longer ruled by external upheavals. They are like ships anchored firmly amid storms. The winds may blow hard, the waters may rise, yet the anchor holds them steady. It is by this voice that a merchant in the midst of the Great Depression refused to sell off his goods and was saved, that a woman in sickness found her path to healing, and that Emmet Fox himself followed when beginning his ministry. These examples prove that this unfailing voice is not theory, but practical power present in every decision of life. The essential question is not whether we have intuition, but whether we are willing to listen, for sacred intuition is never absent. It is only hidden by the noise of the world and the restlessness of the heart. Whoever becomes still, laying aside worry and judgment, will discover the underground stream still flowing, the inner call still sounding, and from that moment life ceases to drift and begins to move into order. Sacred intuition is not a gift reserved for a chosen few. It is the birthright of every soul, proof that we are never abandoned and always guided. You may deny it, you may ignore it, but you cannot extinguish it. It will always remain like a lamp in the night, like an eternal promise from the source of life. And when you truly return to it, you will realize that you were never lost at all. For in every moment, that unfailing voice was patiently waiting for you to listen. The inner source, every true spiritual journey begins with one simple yet most difficult truth to believe: that the kingdom of God is not far away, not housed in temples of stone, not confined to rituals or doctrines that change with each passing age, but dwelling within your own soul. This sanctuary cannot be invaded, cannot be stolen, for it is the immutable holy place you have carried since birth. It is from the very center of the soul that the sacred voice rises, not through human language, but through the stream of silence. A breath eternal, which I call the breath of Christ. It does not compel you. It does not impose. It does not promise rewards. It only whispers, and whoever pauses to listen finds a direction clear and complete. Do you realize that most of life is swept away in the outer world, chasing safety in money, power, and status, yet rarely stopping to ask where the true light resides? How many times have you felt emptiness even while possessing everything society praises, only to discover that those things are but fleeting reflections on water, dissolving the moment you reach for them? Certainty and peace are found only when you turn inward to the hidden sanctuary. The inner voice is the presence of Christ within you, and no special condition is required to reach it. You are not a pilgrim wandering in search of a holy relic, for you already carry that relic in your heart. The only question is whether you will cleanse the mind, silence judgment, cease chasing illusions, so that you might hear it. People often lament that they cannot hear the voice of God, but the truth is that it has never stopped. It is we who have filled our souls with noise and lost the power of discernment. Imagine a clear river flowing ceaselessly, but its surface covered with fallen leaves and debris. The light still reflects upon it, but the eye sees only disorder. Remove the covering, and the river is transparent, the sky revealed. So it is with sacred intuition. It has never ceased to flow, but it requires you to lift the veil. And once you listen, the guidance ceases to be vague and becomes precise, as though someone has already drawn the path in the darkness and now simply turns on the light. There are those who, in times of crisis, were saved by trusting a quiet prompting. There are those who, though stricken with illness, found their path to healing, and there are those who stepped into a new calling when no one believed in them. Yet they pressed forward because within they carried a certainty beyond explanation. All of this arose from recognizing the source within, not elsewhere. I wish to pause here and ask you, at this very moment, as you are listening, do you believe that within you there burns a lamp that has never gone out? Do you believe that no matter where you stand in life, whether in success or in failure, in health or in weakness, there still flows through you a hidden current of light waiting to be acknowledged? Be honest with yourself, for the answer you give will shape the way you live from this moment forward. If you answer yes, you have already begun the journey home. If you find yourself doubting, that too is the opportunity to place your hand upon your chest, breathe deeply, and say, the kingdom of God is within me. You need not prove it. You need only accept it. And that acceptance, once sustained, will become living experience, carrying you into an unshakable peace. I thank you for sitting quietly to listen this far. For the very moment you choose to pause and open your heart, you affirm to your soul that you are ready to return to the source. Let gratitude become your strength. For when you are grateful, you open the channel of reception, and the sacred voice speaks with greater clarity. The inner source is both the beginning and the end. It is the foundation of every prayer, every action, every true aspiration. When you build upon it, all outer things fall into place as natural consequence. The sacred voice that never errs will continue to guide you, and your journey will become living testimony that within you there is a lamp which can never be extinguished. Living proof, sacred intuition is not an abstract concept. It leaves undeniable traces in real-life stories, where what seemed like small decisions opened the way to turning points of great significance. During the Great Depression, when thousands of merchants desperately liquidated their stock to salvage what little money they could, there was one man in the Bronx who felt a strange, unexplainable urging within: keep the warehouse intact. He had no evidence, no data to reassure him, only a profound peace that filled his soul. He trusted and he waited. Days later, a large chain of stores in the Midwest, short of supply due to a strike, came to him and purchased his entire stock at a high price. Instead of bankruptcy, he became the only one with enough goods to rescue the market, preserving his livelihood and creating employment for more than 20 people. That decision did not arise from clever calculation, but from the sacred voice within. A woman faced a medical diagnosis declaring her illness irreversible. Doctors advised her to prepare for the end and put her life in order, yet she refused to accept that as the final word. For 7 consecutive days, she prayed silently with only one phrase: Lord, show me the way. Each night before sleep, she whispered those words. On the 7th day, a doctor's name, unfamiliar yet clear and undeniable, came into her mind. She sought him out, and after careful study, he proposed a new treatment that not only saved her life, but restored her to full health. Science called it luck, but she knew it was guidance. Even Emmet himself knew such an experience. In 1931, he left New Jersey for New York with no secure plan. All he had was a compelling sense that he must go, and so he went without promise, without guarantee. Within weeks, the small gatherings he began in modest rooms began to draw listeners. From that inner prompting, a great mission unfolded, and thousands found healing in his words. These testimonies are not to glorify a few fortunate individuals, but to affirm that sacred intuition is real and operates as a spiritual law. When the soul is quiet and ready, guidance appears sometimes as a sudden thought, a name spoken inwardly, a certainty beyond reason, yet its power is sufficient to alter destiny entirely. The common thread in all these accounts is the peace that accompanied them. The merchant did not tremble in fear as his peers did. He felt safe in holding his stock. The woman did not collapse in despair. She found calm in her nights of prayer. Emmet Fox did not fear uncertainty. He moved forward with inner stillness. That peace is the surest sign of sacred intuition. It never presses with urgency or threat. It comes as a gentle ordering of life. Consider the difference. When action comes from hurried reason, it is usually driven by fear of loss or hunger for gain. Such decisions rarely endure, but when action arises from sacred intuition, the result always extends beyond the individual, for it rescues not just one life, but opens doors for many. The merchant was not only saved, he preserved work for many families. The woman not only regained her health, she became a witness to the power of faith. One man, answering an inner call, began a mission that transformed generations. Sacred intuition never promises the easy road, but it always leads to the right one. It does not shield you from trials, but it turns trials into opportunities. And as you follow, you will see doors, once thought, sealed open at the exact time. The right people appear. Circumstances that seemed random align into perfect sequence. This is not accident, but divine order in motion. The question is not whether intuition works in your life, but whether you are quiet enough to perceive it and courageous enough to obey. These real-life proofs remind us that guidance does not select a privileged few. It is for all, and it is working even now. The matter is whether you will stop to listen, trust enough to step, and remain steadfast to walk the path through. Sacred intuition is the voice that never errs, and its proof is not in theory, but in lives transformed. If a merchant in crisis could hear and save his livelihood, if a woman on the edge of despair could receive guidance and recover life, if a teacher with no clear plan could launch a mission that reached the world, then it means anyone, anywhere, can enter this stream. And when that happens, you will understand that truth does not need to be proven, for life itself will stand as the loudest testimony what intuition is and what it is not. Sacred intuition is one of the highest gifts of the Spirit, yet it is also the most easily misunderstood. Many assume that every passing emotion, every strong impulse, every sudden urge is intuition. Some believe that the desire to avoid hardship, to seek safety, or to soothe the wounded feeling is the voice of the soul, but such things are only surface ripples of the mind. Intuition is not an emotional reaction, not an unconscious craving clothed in reasonable excuses, not the echo of old habits or memories. It is not the product of hurried imagination, nor a reflex to fear. True intuition does not argue with reason, does not stack evidence, does not compel belief. It never arises from the desire to prove something, to outshine, or to control. Rather, it appears as a gentle but undeniable light when you obey it. A peace covers the soul, as if some hidden burden has been set down. When you walk with it, things fall into order without force. That is the clearest sign distinguishing intuition from every other impulse. One mark is certain. Sacred intuition always accords with the golden law of life. It will never urge you to harm another, never lead you into hatred, revenge, guilt, or fear. It will never direct you to do what you yourself would not want to receive. Every genuine prompting brings with it a sense of generosity, release, and rightness. This is the unfailing mirror. By contrast, false intuition often comes with urgency, anxiety, and the need to prove. It demands that you act quickly out of fear of missing an opportunity, fear of losing, fear of being unrecognized. It fills the mind with restless reasons and the heart with tension. If you listen closely, you will notice it carries no peace. only haste and worry, that is not the voice of Christ within, but the turbulence of an uncleansed mind. The book of Proverbs declares, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. This wisdom reminds us that human reason, however clever, is bound by fear, prejudice, and pride. Reason can make plans, but it cannot see the whole. Sacred intuition, however, knows the beginning from the end, for it belongs not to intellect, but to spirit. One of the most common errors of those new to the spiritual path is mistaking desire for intuition. They hear a prompting and believe it is guidance, but it is often fear in disguise or the longing to be admired. This is why discernment is the first lesson. Intuition never debates with sharp words, never demand defense or justification. It simply stands gentle, clear, and once you perceive it, you find yourself quiet, lucid, at peace. Intuition is not like a harsh noise that forces you to hear. It is like a soft note in a symphony, heard only by the attentive. It does not impose, but it perseveres. You may ignore it, but you cannot silence it. It waits until you are humble and ready. And then it leads you. Each time you follow, life grows more reordered, more serene, more whole. The key is learning to listen in stillness, a mind filled with comparison, judgment, argument, and prediction is like a radio off frequency. It cannot catch the signal of truth. But when you pause, when you let worry pass, when you are no longer driven by the need to win or to be right, then the divine frequency rings clear. Sacred intuition is the voice of Christ within you. It does not oppose truth. It is truth. It does not push. It invites. It does not terrify. It frees. When you are caught between many voices, ask yourself, does this bring peace? Does it open my heart? Does it honor life? If yes, it is intuition. If not, it is only agitation. So, what is intuition? It is the pure, peaceful, and certain guidance of the soul, always in harmony with the law of love, and always leading to good. And what is it not? It is not a rash emotion, not an impulse of fear, not the echo of selfish desire. To know this difference is the first step into a life of order, where you no longer live by the chaos of circumstance, but by the light of divine guidance, the standard of discernment, peace, and the golden rule, asterisk, asterisk. There is one sign that never fails to reveal the voice of the Spirit. Peace. When sacred intuition arises, it does not come with turmoil. It does not stir restlessness or urgency. It arrives like a gentle light that permeates the entire soul. No matter how difficult the outer circumstances, no matter how risky the decision, you feel a quiet certainty, as though an unseen burden has suddenly fallen from your shoulders. This peace is not the false calm of avoidance, but the deep assurance that you are walking in the right direction, that all will be arranged in the best possible order. Peace is God's signature upon every decision enlightened by the soul. The second standard is the golden rule, the eternal principle. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The sacred voice never contradicts this. It will never urge you toward revenge, harm, exploitation, or injury for personal gain. It never stirs contempt, resentment, or guilt. Every genuine prompting is constructive, expansive, and good, not only for you, but for all who are touched by it. If an idea or decision leads you into hatred, oppression, or the stripping away of another's freedom, you can be certain it is not the voice of sacred intuition. By contrast, true guidance always opens a door to freedom. It makes you feel generous, released from the prison of fear or selfishness. It melts resentment and ignites faith that even if the path ahead is unclear, the step itself is right. When Christ within you speaks, there is no need for justification or proof. Peace itself is the proof. Thus, distinguishing the true from the false is not difficult if you return to these two measures. If an idea brings inner stillness and aligns with the golden rule, you may walk forward with confidence. If it makes you uneasy, drives you to haste, or urges you to do what you would not wish upon another, stop at once. Scripture reminds us, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Human reason, however clever, is bound by fear, prejudice, and pride. It looks for appearances, for short-term success, for the preservation of reputation. Sacred intuition looks for what is right in the eternal order. Reason often leads to clever but fleeting moves, while intuition leads to the slower yet lasting path. And the one unfailing test remains peace. Many achieve outer success while their hearts are heavy with worry, unrest, and doubt. That is the mark of having followed the false voice. Meanwhile, some choose a way that the world calls loss, yet within they are radiant, steady, and unshaken. Their inner peace is the testimony that they follow the soul's call. Sacred intuition does not seek to make you a hero in the eyes of others. It seeks to make you upright before God. It does not offer quick outcomes to satisfy the ego. It brings growth, maturity, and true freedom. And when you live by the golden rule, your actions become a channel for love and justice. The peace you receive does not remain in you alone. It radiates outward to your family, your work, even to strangers who cross your path. The world today is filled with urgent voices, advertisements, promises, threats, shallow philosophies, and disguised counsel. Without a clear standard, you may easily be swept away. But with these two keys, peace and the golden rule, you will never lose your way. Peace is the inward confirmation. The golden rule is the outward measure. When both align, you can be certain the voice you hear is true, and a wonder unfolds when you remain faithful to these principles. Your power of discernment grows ever sharper as the ear trained in music grows attuned to melody, so the soul trained in peace and love grows attuned to the sacred voice. You will no longer be lost in a maze of choices, for only one path brings true peace. You will no longer be confused by countless opinions, for only the golden rule holds you steady. Sacred intuition is the compass Christ has placed in your heart. With peace as the needle, the golden rule is the map, ensuring no step of yours ever departs from the truth of life. When you live by these two standards, you will no longer be subject to external judgment, shaken by social upheaval, or driven by meaningless haste. You will walk calmly, knowing each step is illuminated, each decision confirmed by peace, and each action aligned with the eternal law of love. Training in discernment, no one can truly walk the spiritual path without first learning the art of discernment between the true voice and the false echo. For within every mind there are countless streams of thought, some rising from desire, from fear, from habit, and some flowing from the depths of the soul. Without training, it is easy to confuse them all and to believe one is following divine guidance, when in truth one is merely reacting to impulse. This is why many begin with faith, yet end in disappointment when the outcome falls short of their hopes. They have not yet learned discernment. The first lesson in training discernment is to learn from your own experience. Sit down, open a notebook, and write about 3 times in your life when you felt a clear inner warning but ignored it. Record how you felt in that moment, the reasons you gave for dismissing it, the arguments you used to reassure yourself, and finally what happened as a result. Then write about 3 times you did follow your intuition, even when no one around you agreed or when reason told you to stop. Recall the outcome and the peace that followed. When you reflect on this contrast, the difference between rash emotion and sacred voice will become so plain. It cannot be denied. The false voice usually comes with urgency, with a barrage of reasons, with fear of missing out. If you do not act at once, it brings tension, defensiveness, the need to prove. The true voice is the opposite. It does not push. It does not argue. It does not require reasons. It simply suggests gently and waits for you to listen. Most importantly, it always brings peace. Recognizing this is the first step in the art of discernment. A classic image used by the great teachers is to liken the soul to a radio. A radio can tune into hundreds of stations, but you only hear the frequency you select if your mind is filled with judgments, comparisons, noisy news, and empty chatter. Then the frequency you receive will be chaotic. But if you tune carefully, clearing away interference, you will hear the pure music of the soul. This is why stillness is essential. Only when the mind is quiet can intuition sound clearly. Training in discernment is not achieved in a day. It is like developing a sense. Just as the ear of a musician is trained to detect the subtlest shift in tone, the soul must be trained to recognize the difference between the echo of the ego and the call of Christ. This is the power of the voice within, not just a sound you hear, but a space you return to. As you return to that space again and again, discernment becomes natural. There is a story of a young man during the Great Depression of 1929. He lost everything. His family urged him to accept a degrading job just to survive. Reason told him this was the only way, yet within he felt a quiet resistance. He said, "This is not pride. It simply does not bring peace." He waited patiently, continued to pray, and kept his spirit still. Weeks later, an old customer approached him with an opportunity for a new venture. That chance not only rescued him from despair, but opened a company that flourished for years. This is proof that the sacred voice does not lead to the easy road, but it always leads to the right road. How then to train? There is a simple yet powerful practice. The word exercise. Choose one word with spiritual power: Christ, peace, or light. As you inhale, think of that word. As you exhale, let all other thoughts fall away. At first, the mind will remain noisy, but if you persist, the thoughts will thin out. And in the silence that remains, the sacred voice will begin to sound. Practice this each morning and evening, and you will find your soul becoming clearer. Your discernement caneur, sacred intuition, does not need to be explained. It only needs to be heard and obeyed. But to hear rightly, you must train. Do not expect instant results, for delicacy takes time. Each day you choose stillness. Each moment you listen instead of reacting. Each time you let peace be your measure, you are training the ear of your spirit. The art of discernment not only spares you from mistakes, it leads you into true freedom. You will no longer chase every conflicting piece of advice, no longer be swayed by the fears of the crowd, no longer driven by the haste of ego. You will walk with certainty, knowing the voice within you is always true, always leading to good. And once you taste this guidance, you will understand that nothing in life can compare to its power. Training in discernment is the beginning of spiritual maturity. Once you master it, you will see that life is no longer a chain of chaotic events, but a flowing order. You will know that you are not abandoned, but guided by an unseen hand. And most of all, you will realize that the voice was never far away. It has always been there, waiting for you to return, to trust and to walk. Scientific prayer. Be still and know. Asterisk, asterisk. No instrument can give forth a pure tone while it is out of tune, and no soul can hear the sacred voice while it is filled with noise. Most people pray with words, with pleading, with lists of wishes and fears. They believe that the more they repeat, the more surely God will hear. Yet they do not understand that prayer is not endless speech, not an attempt to persuade a power outside themselves, but an inner harmony. Scientific prayer does not seek to change the will of God, but to change the human mind until it aligns with the divine order already established. This is why the first condition of prayer is stillness. Be still and know. Be still and know that I am God. When the human mind is crowded with worry, comparison, calculation, and resistance, one is only speaking to oneself, not truly connecting. But when one stops, when the soul falls into silence, then the eternal presence can be felt. Scientific prayer is not asking that something should happen, but reminding the soul that it already exists in the spiritual realm. When you pray with this faith, you no longer ask, but give thanks. You no longer fear, but rest in certainty. This rest itself is the evidence of faith, and such faith makes way for the divine to be revealed outwardly. A simple yet powerful technique is the practice of the single word. Choose a word of spiritual power: Christ, peace, or light. As you breathe in, repeat it inwardly. As you breathe out, let every other thought fall away. Do not force. Do not expect special feelings. Allow this gentle repetition to soothe the restless current of the mind. At first, the mind will remain noisy, but gradually a silence will open, and in that silence, the sacred intuition speaks. This is the space where true prayer begins. When Charles Fillmore, founder of the Unity movement, spoke of the power of silence, he did not emphasize eloquent words, but declared that it was silence itself that opened the door to revelation. He sat still, not turning prayer into a string of demands, but into an act of listening. From that listening came great ideas that birthed a spiritual movement reaching across the world. This is proof that prayer is not the creation of something new, but the awakening of a truth that has always been. Scientific prayer is the affirmation of peace rather than the magnifying of problems. When you fixate on the problem, your mind is filled with negative images and you enlarge them. But when you affirm the divine truth, you remind yourself that the solution already exists. The order is intact. Peace is present. You are not begging God for a miracle. You are attuning yourself to the miracle that already is. Some object that when they pray in silence, they feel nothing, but they forget that a seed does not yield fruit the moment it is planted. The silence you keep is the soil, and the soil needs time to nourish. The farmer does not demand to see the sprout before trusting. He knows the process is underway. So it is with the soul. When you persist in silence, though it feels dry, though no emotion arises, you are sowing seeds of harmony. And in time, the result appears not by chance, but by inevitability. Scientific prayer is not measured by length, but by sincerity. 15 minutes, morning and evening, spent listening with a true heart, is stronger than long hours of restless words. One moment of silent faith is mightier than hours of anxious speech. Be still and know, asterisk, this is not merely a divine command, but the law of spiritual life. When you are still, You see that all is under God's order. When you know fear vanishes, doute dissolve, and you step calmly into the future, that state itself is the bridge through which the good of the Spirit becomes real in your life. Scientific prayer is the continual affirmation that light is here, peace is present, and you need only attune to it. This is not blind belief, but living experience. For anyone who is faithful to this practice will see life gradually transformed. Fear no longer rules. Circumstances no longer bind, and one lives in the certainty that a higher order directs each step. And when this becomes experience, there is no need to prove it to anyone, for the life itself becomes the loudest testimony. Scientific prayer is entering stillness to know that the divine is present, is speaking, is guiding. Be still and know asterisk, and you will discover that truth has never left you. It has always been within, waiting for you to return. Daily tuning, tithe of time, asterisk, asterisk. Even the finest instrument will drift out of tune if it is not adjusted regularly. The human mind is the same. If it is not aligned daily, it gradually slips out of harmony with divine principle. That is why Emmet Fox called daily practice the tithe of time, the offering of a portion of your day as the first fruits are offered to God, not because He needs your time, but because you need to give the best part of your day to set the tone for everything that follows. That time is the seed that determines the quality of all the hours to come. When you first awaken, the mind is fresh, not yet crowded with worry, news, work, or hurried conversation. This is the golden moment. If you use it to connect with divine truth, your whole day is ordered in peace. If you waste it, letting chaotic images flood in, you will be swept into worry and unrest for the rest of the day. This is not vague theory, but spiritual law. What is sown first will imprint itself on the entire day. A businessman in Manhattan once came to Emmet Fox in despair. Sales were collapsing, competition fierce, and he wanted a quick fix. But instead of a trick, he was told to devote at least 15 minutes each morning to stillness, breathing deeply, giving thanks for his business, affirming God's presence in every transaction, and recording any positive thoughts that arose. At first he resisted, claiming he had no time, but after persevering, within weeks his sales rose by 40%, and within a month they doubled. More than money changed, his very face shone with peace. Daily tuning had brought a new order to his life. The tithe of time is not a forced ritual, but an act of wisdom. If 15 minutes in the morning can bring clarity to an entire day, why waste the moment? It is a small offering with immense return. Just as a farmer gives the first fruit to bless the whole harvest, you give the first moments of your day to bless the whole day. Imagine a simple routine. Upon waking, before touching your phone or thinking of work, sit quietly, breathe deeply, and whisper, "This is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it." Write down 3 things you are grateful for, however small. Then write an affirmation for the day. Divine wisdom guides every decision I make today. Let your mind rest for 5 minutes, focusing on a single word like Christ or peace. If a clear thought arises, record it without analysis. Finally, dedicate the day with the affirmation, "All is well, for God is with me." If you practice this for 30 days, you will see unmistakable change, not because outer problems vanish, but because you enter the day on a higher frequency. You see with new eyes, act from a new power, and the world shifts in response. Closed doors open. Tangled problems find solutions. Strained relationships soften. This is not random luck. It is the natural resonance of a mind tuned daily. Some say they do not have time, but everyone has 24 hours. The question is, for what do you use them? If you have time to worry, you have time to give thanks. If you have time to skim endless trivial news, you have time to sit in silence. Time is never lacking. Only priorities are. And when you put God first, everything else falls into place. Once you master this habit, you will see its power extends beyond yourself. A tuned mind does not only change your day, it influences those around you. The peace you carry into work, the clarity in your words, the patience in your actions. These are lights for others. That is the radiating value of the Tithe of Time. Daily tuning is a reminder that you never enter the day alone. You enter with an unseen but certain companion. You do not stumble through chaos. You walk in divine order. And each time you sit, close your eyes, breathe, and dedicate your day, you make your soul into a finely tuned instrument through which the music of God may flow. This is why Emmet called it a universal law that cannot fail. What you offer to God first will bless the rest. And when you are faithful to the tithe of time, not only your days, but your entire life will rise to a new frequency, where peace, order, and prosperity become natural. Intuition in finance. Many believe that finance belongs solely to mathematics, statistics, markets, and dry numbers. They think intuition has no place in money matters, being reserved only for spiritual life or personal choices. But the truth is, the soul does not divide spiritual life from material life. Divine order operates in every realm, even in the cold world of finance. For money is not merely paper, but a current of energy in circulation. When you approach it in harmony with the soul, finance becomes a channel for order and blessing. There are moments when the market sends mixed signals. Technical analysis shows no danger. Experts declare stability. Yet the soul whispers clearly, withdraw, wait, stay out. And when you are courageous enough to heed that intuition, you avoid great loss. There are those without advanced financial training, yet through deep spiritual life, they know exactly when to hold, when to sell, when to wait. Not because they can foretell the future, but because they live in rhythm with divine principle, and that principle never errs. Yet remember, intuition in finance does not feed greed. It does not urge you to chase quick profit, nor encourage exploiting the misfortune of others for gain. It guides only within the order of good. If a decision enriches you while unfairly harming another, you can be certain it is not sacred intuition. True intuition always leads to shared prosperity, securing you without taking from another. Recall the parable of the talents. The servants with 5 and 2 talents used them faithfully, and they multiplied. But the one with a single talent, driven by fear, buried it and lost even that. The story is not about money, but about consciousness. Those who act in trust of divine order multiply blessings, while those who act in fear lose even what little they hold. Money is the reflection of the mind state. Those who sow in anxiety reap loss. Those who sow in faith reap abundance. Consider the story of a widow in Harlem. She often recited Psalm 23, repeating the affirmation, "My cup runneth over." In time, she felt an undeniable urging to sell her old house, though neighbors urged her to hold for rising prices. She listened, sold in peace. And months later, new regulations caused property values in her area to collapse. With the money, she opened a small sewing shop, not only sustaining herself, but creating jobs for other women. This shows that sacred intuition does not only secure the individual, but creates value for the community. The essence is to listen in stillness before making financial decisions, before signing a contract, investing, lending, or borrowing. See dawn, breathe deeply, and affirm, God is my source. Divine order governs every transaction. Visualize a peaceful outcome where every financial commitment is fulfilled in harmony, where both you and others benefit. If peace fills that vision, move forward. If unease lingers, stop, for true intuition never comes with restlessness. In a world where markets shift daily, where news can drive millions into panic within minutes, inner stillness is the greatest advantage. A mind anchored in the soul does not chase frenzy, nor collapse in crisis. It acts from peace, and that peace becomes the foundation of wise decision. Intuition in finance does not replace knowledge or research. It supplements and elevates them. It gives you clarity numbers cannot, insight beyond what analysis can predict. When reason and intuition, science and spirit work together, you walk the surest path. Let your finances be guided not by fear or greed, but by divine principle. Then money becomes a clean current, bringing order to you and all involved. That is true prosperity, not hoarded for pride, but circulating for blessing. And when you live this way, every financial decision ceases to be a gamble, becoming instead an act of alignment with eternal order, where all things lead to good. A higher diagnosis in healing. In the field of medicine, people often place their entire trust in machines, in doctors, in complex treatment plans. All of these are valuable for medical science, is the knowledge of the body's order. But it is a mistake to think medicine and spirit are separate. In truth, both move toward one goal, the restoration of harmony. Medicine works through the body. Sacred intuition guides through the mind and soul. And when these two paths meet, the miracle called true healing takes place. There are times when a doctor insists on immediate surgery, declaring there is no other way, yet within, the patient feels a quiet resistance, not born of fear, but of the absence of peace. When they wait and listen, another solution emerges. Perhaps a different doctor, a less invasive procedure, or even a change of life that restores balance. This is not a denial of medicine, but the illumination of intuition leading to the right door. This is the power of the voice within, not just a voice you hear, but a space you return to, asterisk. And when you return to that space, every medical decision is placed in a clearer light. One woman once came to Emmet Fox, anxious over a diagnosis that called for immediate surgery, yet she sensed deep within a refusal. He advised her to spend 3 days in silence, in prayer, asking for guidance. After 3 days, she happened upon the name of another doctor in a newspaper and felt compelled to call. That doctor discovered the initial diagnosis was mistaken. No dangerous surgery was needed. Only light treatment. She recovered completely. This is living proof that intuition does not oppose medicine, but completes it, lifting it to a higher plane. The body never falls ill by accident. It mirrors the mind and emotions. A mind filled with fear, hatred, or tension will show its strain in the body. Conversely, when peace, trust, and love flow within, the body responds with strength, resilience, and self-healing. It is no accident that many ailments improve when people learn to forgive, to release resentment, or to embrace change they once resisted. Illness often carries a message. It is time to return to yourself, A simple but profound practice is to bless the body each night before sleep. As you lie down, breathe deeply and picture each organ. Say inwardly, I bless my heart. Thank you for your faithful service. I bless my liver, my lungs, every cell of my skin. When you treat the body with gratitude, you restore the bond between soul and flesh. The body is no longer a burden, but the temple where spirit dwells. And when the temple is blessed, it reflects harmony. Modern science has begun to affirm this. Many doctors now admit that emotions and belief directly influence treatment outcomes. A hopeful spirit speeds recovery. A calm mind strengthens immunity, while anxiety and fear worsen illness. What science calls psychosomatic medicine is but a fragment of an ancient truth. Body and soul are one. True healing must include both. Sacred intuition in healing does not promise escape from all suffering, but it leads you onto the best path of recovery. It may guide you to the right doctor, the right method, the right time. It helps you discern between needless worry and true warning. Above all, it gives you peace in the very process of healing, assuring you that you are not alone, that a divine order is guiding you. But to receive this guidance, you must cultivate silence. If you rush from one voice to another, one piece of advice to the next, your mind will be filled with conflict. And intuition, though present, cannot be heard only when you pause, breathe deeply, and listen. Does the voice emerge? Medical diagnosis is vital, but the higher diagnosis is more vital still. Medicine sees the symptom, intuition sees the cause. Medicine prescribes treatment. Intuition directs you to the right path for you. And when the two cooperate, true healing unfolds. This is not a miracle of chance, but divine order at work. Remember, your body is not the enemy, and illness is not punishment. It is a signal calling you back, urging you to reconcile with yourself and restore balance. When you bless your body, when you listen to intuition, you open the door to healing, and in that light, you see that healing is not an event, but a process. It begins in the mind, flows into the body, and radiates into your whole life. This is the power of the inner voice, not merely to be heard, but to bring you home, to guide you, and to restore the wholeness that has always been yours. Family and relationships, no environment tests the depth of spiritual maturity more than the family. It is at the dinner table, in the small rooms, in the ordinary conversations of daily life, that the soul reveals itself most clearly. Family is not only a shelter, but the laboratory of love, where every conflict and difference becomes an opportunity to listen to the sacred voice. For it is in the closest relationships that the ego speaks loudest, and it is there that the voice of Christ within must be heard most clearly. Many seek miracles in faraway places, in temples, in solemn ceremonies, yet the truest miracles often unfold in the little house. When one person chooses not to answer with anger, when a kind word replaces a sharp one, when a look of understanding extinguishes an entire fire of tension, that is where sacred intuition shows its power. It does not create grand events, but transforms the atmosphere, turning a home of conflict into a haven of peace. A mother in a study group once came with a heavy heart. Her only son had fallen into rebellion, rejecting all guidance, resisting every rule. In despair, she thought of sending him away, but instead of acting in haste, she turned to silence for 7 days. Each time she thought of him, she uttered no complaint, no reproach, only whispered, Christ in you is your true nature. Each morning while he slept, she read aloud the chapter on love from 1 Corinthians as an affirmation for the home. The result was striking. By the 5th day, the boy came of his own accord, zat bezijder, and began to talk. There was no debate, no pressure, only the quiet shift born of the spiritual atmosphere she had created. This is proof that sacred intuition does not argue. It simply transforms by presence in the family. The key is not who is right or wrong, but who will return first to divine principle. One soul anchored in peace can change the whole climate, even before others recognize it. For the energy of peace is stronger than any argument. It does not need to win. It only needs to shine. Every relationship carries wounds, memories, words unhealed. But if you keep seeing your loved ones through the old lens, you will keep repeating the old cycle. To change it, you must first change the picture in your mind of them. Instead of seeing a stubborn husband, affirm that divine wisdom lives in him. Instead of seeing a withdrawn child, declare that God's light is shining in that heart. This is not denial of reality, but looking beyond appearances to the deeper truth. A powerful practice for restoring the family atmosphere is to read aloud the Sermon on the Mount each evening. No analysis, no commentary, just read slowly and let the sacred words soak into the walls. These words act like cleansing water, returning the home's energy to its original purity. Those who have practiced this testify that tensions ease, unseen weights lift, and relationships soften without many words at all. In every family decision, whether large as moving homes or educating children, or small as planning a trip, learn to ask intuition first. Do not let habit and haste decide for you. Sit still, be silent, and ask, is this the right time? Is this the right way? The sacred voice never rushes. It only suggests gently, and when you follow, everything unfolds in order, without strain, without regret. Family is the sacred temple where Christ most longs to dwell. If in your own home the sacred voice is not heard, then all outer success will feel empty. But if your home becomes a place of peace, then no challenge outside can shake you. Begin. Then, with small actions, with gentle words, with shared moments of silence, these are the foundations of lasting prosperity and peace. In every relationship, remember, the goal is not to prevail, but to let divine love be revealed. When one person in a family chooses to stop, to listen, and to respond from peace rather than anger, the entire family begins to change. This is not distant theory. It is a living reality, and it is in your very home, among the people you love, that you can begin to live in harmony with the sacred voice today. Signs and synchronicity. The sacred voice does not always come as a clear thought or a strong feeling. Sometimes guidance arrives through outer signs, through strange coincidences that the rational mind dismisses as chance. But to the listening soul, these are the language of God, the perfect pieces falling into place at the right moment, affirming the path you are walking. This synchronicity is not luck, but the delicate harmony between your inner being and the universe. When the soul is ready, the world reflects to show the way. An engineer once told of a time when he hesitated over a major decision. Within 3 days, he encountered the same scripture verse in 3 different places. First on a billboard while driving, then in an old notebook that fell from a shelf, and finally on the cover of a book in a store. He passed by 3 repetitions. One message, he knew it was no longer coincidence. He obeyed the guidance, and the decision became a turning point in both his career and his family life. Repetition is one of the clearest marks of synchronicity. An image, a word, a number, or a situation keeps reappearing until you recognize it. This is not accident, but emphasis from the universe. Yet to notice, you must be inwardly quiet. For those who live in constant noise, overlook these subtle messages. Intuition and synchronicity always work together, one as the inner voice, the other as the outer confirmation. When they meet, there is no mistaking the truth. But we must distinguish truth from illusion. Some, in eagerness, try to find signs in everything and force meaning onto trivial events. That is not synchronicity. That is projection of the mind. True signs do not bring restlessness or pressure. They bring peace and clarity. They do not force urgent action, but gently confirm that you are on the right path. When the inner voice speaks and the outer signs align, you are moving within God's order. Try this simple practice. For 1 week, begin each day with a prayer, asking that your spiritual eyes be open to notice signs. Carry a small notebook and record any repetition, any event that strikes you deeply. At week's end, read them together. You will see an invisible thread connecting them, a message far clearer than the fragments alone. This is how you train the mind, to be sensitive to synchronicity. Instead of ignoring it, have you ever felt this, that a small event happened yet matched perfectly with what you had prayed for, as though it were arranged just for you to notice? I ask you, has any sign or repetition recently stirred your heart, making you feel guided? If so, believe it is no trick, but a gentle confirmation from the divine. And I thank you for your listening presence even now. Is the very openness that allows such signs to appear more clearly. Synchronicity teaches us that life is not a string of random events. Each detail belongs to a perfect web of order. Not a single leaf falls without the knowledge of the whole. When you live in awareness, you see that you are never alone. Every happening carries a message. Every person you meet plays a role. And every repeated sign is a reminder that you are flowing in the right stream. And once you taste this language, your faith becomes stronger than ever. You no longer need absolute certainty from logic, for you have constant confirmation from both within and without. Intuition and synchronicity together become compass and map, guiding your journey without fear of losing the way. Trust that signs will come. You do not need to chase them. And when they come, you will know, because they arrive with a peace that cannot be denied. This is the language of the universe, the language of Christ within you, always whispering, always waiting for you to recognize the 3 obstacles. The sacred voice has never ceased to speak, yet there are veils of mist that prevent us from hearing it. Chief among them are 3 obstacles: criticism, fear, and materialism. These do not arrive with noise and thunder, but creeping quietly day after day, gradually silencing intuition until the soul loses its power of discernment. To restore clarity in the inner channel, one must face these 3 directly. Criticism is the most obvious habit. The mind becomes busy analyzing, judging, comparing, condemning. When you dwell on the faults of others, you imagine yourself wise, but in truth you are poisoning the very atmosphere of your own soul. Each judgment you utter clouds a fragment of your ability to hear the sacred voice. For when the mind is fixed on the errors of another, it has no space left to receive truth. The greatest critics are often those least attuned to intuition. Constant judgment is like static that distorts the frequency, making the soul deaf to its native peace. Fear is the second obstacle, and perhaps the strongest. It does not always show itself as panic, but more often as a low current of worry, doubt, and excessive caution. It whispers that all will fail, that the world is unsafe. Fear cloaks itself in reason, but at its core it is a denial of divine power. When fear governs, the inner voice is drowned out. One may think they are being cautious, but in reality they are only listening to the echo of unbelief. The truth cannot be heard in a trembling heart. The third obstacle is materialism. This is not merely the accumulation of wealth or comfort, but the deeper habit of believing only in what is visible. People trust the numbers in their accounts more than the certainty of the soul. They chase news, expert advice, passing trends, while neglecting the whisper of intuition. Materialism is a refined idolatry. It makes efficiency the only standard appearance, the only truth. And when the mind is gripped by form, it loses the ability to hear the eternal voice within. These three obstacles are not the failings of a few, but the common habits of humanity. Yet anyone can overcome them. To rise above criticism, train yourself to replace judgment with blessing. When tempted to condemn, affirm the good instead. To rise above fear, focus on the divine presence surrounding every moment. Let faith be your shield. To rise above materialism, remind yourself that cause lies in mind, and the outer world is but reflection. No one can nourish these three obstacles and still expect to hear the sacred voice clearly. They are like dust upon a mirror. If you would see the light, you must cleanse each layer. One day without judgment, 1 hour without anxiety, 1 moment without clinging to form. These are the first steps by which the soul returns to purity. The vital lesson is this: the sacred voice has not disappeared. It has never left you. But when the mind is absorbed in criticism, fear, or materialism, you turn your back on it. Just as the sun always shines, only the clouds must part for the light to appear. You do not need to beg the voice to return. You need only clear away the clouds in the mind. When these three obstacles begin to dissolve, you will be astonished at the clarity that comes. Decisions once blocked will open into wisdom. Relationships once tense will soften. Trials once hopeless will reveal a way forward. This is the reward of a soul that keeps its inner channel clean. The three obstacles remind us that the spiritual journey is not about finding something new, but about removing what has covered the truth. And when you do, you will realize that the sacred voice was never silent. It was only waiting for you to be still enough to listen, discerning the voices. Not every echo in the mind comes from the sacred source. As the soul begins to open, it receives impressions, urgings, emotions, all pressing for attention. Some are the echoes of unhealed desires, some the promptings of the ego seeking to prove itself, and some the true whisper of Christ. The challenge is discernment, for if you mistake one for the other, you may chase illusions while believing you walk in the light. The first standard of discernment is peace. The sacred voice never creates pressure, never drives you to act instantly out of fear of missing an opportunity. It may call you to change, it may stretch you beyond comfort, but it always comes with quiet certainty. Voice is born of emotion. By contrast, bring haste and excitement tinged with anxiety. If an idea leaves you restless, you may be sure it does not come from the divine. A beautiful illustration is found in the story of the prophet Elijah. He looked for God's voice in the wind, in the earthquake, in the fire, but found nothing. Only when the gentle whisper passed did he recognize the divine presence. So it has always been. The true voice does not arrive with display, but as a stillness that makes the soul secure. There is a simple practice for distinguishing. When you receive a strong idea, do not rush to act. write it down and set it aside for a few days. In that time, return to silence, to prayer, and observe if the thought remains still carrying peace. Then it is likely true intuition. But if it fades, or each remembrance brings tension, it was but an echo of emotion. Truth is never in haste. It endures, unpressing, unvanishing. This is the power of the voice within. Not just a voice you hear, but a space you return to. Asterisk. The true voice is not merely a passing suggestion, but a sanctuary you revisit, where every idea is tested in stillness. Each time you return, falsehood dissolves and only truth remains. A pianist once wrestled with an offer to study abroad. She felt excitement, yet also sleeplessness, illness, quarrels at home. Guided in practice, she wrote everything down and prayed daily with the affirmation, asterisk, God's way for me will be clear. After 10 days, the excitement had vanished, leaving only relief at the thought of staying. She declined the scholarship and soon met a teacher who guided her career into greater maturity. The lesson was clear. The true voice does not always match the ego's wishes, but it always leads to peace. Another principle is to consider the inner outcome. The sacred voice leads you into openness, freedom, clarity. It may draw you beyond the familiar, but it never binds false echoes. On the other hand, bring narrowing pressure to prove, fear of missing out. Truth liberates, illusion enslaves. Train yourself with 3 questions before acting. First, does this bring me peace? Second, does it free me or press me into strain? Third, does it draw me nearer to God's presence or away from silence? If all 3 answer yes, you may walk forward. If any remain uncertain, wait. Time never devalues truth, but always exposes illusion. True intuition does not only reveal what to do, but when and how. If the timing and manner are unclear, the voice is not yet complete. What comes from divine principle is whole. It points not only to the goal, but also to the path, each step secure. And as you walk in that certainty, you will know you are not alone. Discerning the voices is the most vital discipline of spiritual life. It demands patience, humility, and steady practice. But once mastered, you need never fear being lost. For the true voice cannot be mistaken forever. It proves itself by peace that no false voice can counterfeit. And when you find it, you have found the compass of the soul guiding you through every crossroad in quiet confidence, breath, and courageous obedience. The inner voice is not a luxury for calm days. It is the compass in the most perilous hours when reason seems powerless and all outward certainty collapses. It does not merely whisper in small choices. It calls us into risky paths where courageous obedience is required. It is in those moments that we learn faith is not passive belief, but the strength to act when the ground beneath is still unseen. Obeying the sacred voice always demands a step beyond calculation. It may mean leaving a secure job for a new direction, speaking a truth the crowd rejects, or taking on a task with no guarantee of outcome. Outwardly, these choices defy safety. But deep within, another peace speaks, reminding you that true security is not in circumstances, but in standing rightly within divine order. The scriptures overflow with such examples of courageous obedience. Abraham left his homeland without knowing where he would go, simply because he heard the inner call. Moses led his people out of Egypt while the sea was still unparted. Rahab sheltered the Israelites, though danger stood at her door. They did not act because outer assurance was present, but because the inner voice rang louder than fear. They moved before the result appeared, and their moving opened the way for the result A modern example is Harriet Tubman, born into slavery with no map, no allies, no resources, only visions, and the voice urging her to escape. She obeyed and not only found freedom for herself, but returned again and again to free over 70 others. Each time, intuition told her when to turn, when to stop, when to take a different road, and she obeyed. Not once did she fail. This was not luck, but the union of divine breath and human courage. Even preachers have known such sudden guidance after days preparing a sermon. One may rise to the pulpit and feel a wholly different word stir within. In that moment of hesitation, obedience speaks. The message shifts, and unseen results unfold. Lives spared, accidents avoided, new doors opened. Not all recognize the change, but heaven bears witness. Intuition not only leads to wisdom, sometimes it preserves life itself. Courageous obedience is learning to trust divine breath more than human plan. It is not reckless impulse, but action carried by peace. When the true voice speaks, it does not drive with fear. It steadies with clarity. Your heart may pound, yet you feel upheld. To obey is to let that upholding carry you, even without knowing where it leads. No one learns courage by sitting idle. It is trained in daily acts of obedience, in the phone call long avoided, in the apology withheld, in the idea feared to be mocked. Each small step is obedience, and repeated steps strengthen the soul for greater trials. Remember, intuition never promises an easy road. It does not guarantee escape from hardship, but it does guarantee the road will be right, and rightness will always lead to the best end. The obedient soul is not the one who never fears, but the one who places truth above fear. When you breathe in silence, you discover that each breath carries God's presence. Inhale and feel life enter. Exhale and release worry and strain. In this simple rhythm, the sacred voice grows clear. And when you choose to obey it, even in the smallest matter, you are building the bridge to a life guided by higher order. Breath and courageous obedience are the twin wings that lift the soul out of the ego's safety zone. Breath keeps you rooted in the source. Obedience carries you into action. When they unite, doors once locked swing open, walls once immovable fall. And in those steps, you realize faith is no longer a concept, but a living power, ever lifting, ever guiding you to the end. Collective intuition and living in continuous flow. Intuition is not given only to individuals. It gains extraordinary power when a group opens its heart together. When souls sit in silence, lay aside ego, and unite around a higher purpose, a current of collective wisdom emerges. This is not the sum of opinions, but the unveiling of a higher awareness, where all hear one voice, the voice of divine principle. Small groups that pray and keep silence before making decisions often discover solutions no single person could conceive. This is collective intuition, a shared space where truth becomes clearer and stronger. Picture a company, a family, or a community, beginning the day with minutes of silence. No arguing, no forcing, only hearts aligned with good. Out of that silence, fresh ideas appear. Doors thought closed swing open. When souls move in rhythm with the divine, no one needs to shout to defend a view. Words spoken in peace are recognized by all. Decisions arise not from debate, but from resonance. This proves that when people tune to one frequency, the universe provides the answer. Collective intuition does not erase differences, it turns them into harmony. A symphony does not need every instrument to play the same note. It needs them to blend. Likewise, a family or group that listens to collective intuition transforms conflict into strength, tension into creativity. This happens only when all agree that the highest goal is not victory, but truth and benefit for all. Living by collective intuition points to a new way forward for communities and even nations, for as more small groups practice, the greater current of society shifts. Instead of fear, greed, and rivalry, life is guided by trust, sharing, and cooperation. A company led by collective intuition brings not only profit but value to its community. A family in harmony nurtures generations raised in love and security. Yet for collective intuition to manifest, each person must first learn to live in continuous flow. Intuition is not a rare flash of inspiration, but a river always running within. When you are silent and open, the river flows freely. When hurried, afraid, or bound by ego, it is blocked. Those who live in continuous flow do not wait for occasional sparks of insight. They walk daily in guidance from the smallest choice to the greatest turning point. To live in flow means learning to pause before reacting, to listen before speaking, to pray before acting. It is spiritual discipline reminding you that no decision is too small for illumination. As you practice Tenshon, fathers, you no longer force events, for they fall into place as you move in rhythm with intuition. This is no abstract theory. It can be tested every day. Try 30 days with a simple vow. Listen before speaking. Pray before acting. When faced with a situation, pause briefly to connect with the sacred flow. When a decision arises, breathe deeply, release tension, and let intuition lead. Choices become clearer. Opportunities draw nearer. Even difficulties grow gentler. The divine current never ceases. Only we cease to hear. But when you open and trust, you find the flow not only guides you, but moves through you into family, group, community. And when many live in that flow, a new world forms where every act springs from peace. Every decision reflects love. Every relationship rests on eternal principle. Personal intuition brings safety and peace to the individual. Collective intuition expands that peace to the whole. When both unite, life ceases to be random events and becomes a sacred river where each soul is both guided and a channel of light. In this harmony, you realize the world was never chaos, but always a web of order waiting for you to step in and be carried by the eternal flow of truth. The sacred voice has never left you. It remains waiting gently for your return. When you learn to be silent, to discern, to obey, you will discover you were never alone. Every step, every choice, every relationship is upheld by an eternal order. And when you listen not only for yourself, but together with others, an entire community can be transformed. This is the path of living in continuous flow, where every limit dissolves and every moment becomes a testimony to the presence of God within you. Begin today, for the life you seek has always been within you from the very beginning.